say this is the Department of Veterans Affairs. But DBA didn't put one penny into that vehicle. It was charitable groups that did it. So are we saying then that veterans, these men and women here and over there, have to go to charity to get the help they need? I'll tell you, the government didn't send charity over when they went to Afghanistan or World War II. They sent humans over there. They sent the very best we had in Canada. And so no, Mr. Brewster, to answer your question very quickly, no cuts to the department. But you could do this if you wanted to. Get rid of the Veterans Review and Appeal Board, take the $11 million that costs to run that politically appointed, useless entity within DVA, and put that $11 million into programs and services for veterans. And I'll tell you, peer-reviewed medical evidence is all a veteran should need when they apply for a benefit. Right now we have people with medical evidence that is from a specialist. A medical specialist says, this person has this condition by military service. They go to VRAB. VRAB denies it because they didn't want to hear the answer. They're not medically trained at VRAB. They didn't serve their country except for Harold LeDuc and a couple of others. And look what happened to Harold LeDuc, how they treated him. The reality is, you shouldn't have to struggle and fight for years and years and years to get a benefit you so richly deserve. Not one of these men and women are asking for the Rolex watch or the trip to Florida. They're not asking for that. They're asking for a livable pension. They're asking for help around the house. They're asking for pharmaceutical treatment. They're asking for psychological treatment. They're asking for the basic tenets of help. Since when did we become a country where we don't even think of it in that regard? So no, Mary, if you cut that department, you're going to cut services and programs to future veterans, RCMP members and their families, and we simply won't accept it.
Mike Lakuta, Global.
Stauffer, I was wondering, on a somewhat separate subject, if you could comment on the actions and comments of Mr. Rob Anders, who fell asleep at a committee in Halifax and then called it a smear campaign.
Okay. Well, first of all, I wasn't there at the meeting. My colleague Irene Matheson was there. But I can tell you this much, that Jim Lowther and Mr. Armstrong are two of the finest people that I know in the veteran community. For them to make a presentation before a standing committee of the House of Commons in Ottawa. I know my colleague Mr. Casey was there as well. And for him to sleep or have a cat nap or whatever he wants to call it during that presentation is an insult. If for whatever reason he wasn't feeling well or was tired, he should have excused himself and not have been there in the first place. And then for him to accuse them, one, of being friends of Vladimir Putin, because they had the audacity to say that even in Russia there's transition services for veterans, to accuse them of being friends, and then to say they're in the back pocket of Peter Stauffer. I didn't know I had that much, didn't know my pants were that big enough to have people in my back pocket. But I found that a backhanded compliment in that regard. But it was an insult to Mr. Lowther and Mr. Armstrong. Is it an insult to these men and women that volunteer their own time and their own money to help homeless veterans? For Mr. Anders to insult him in that regard is unbelievable. And then for him, for the PMO's office to issue the apology at the last minute on a Friday afternoon is a further insult to Mr. Lowther and to all veterans in this country. Mr. Anders should rise today in the House of Commons. He should apologize without reservation to the veteran community and to Mr. Lowther and Mr. Armstrong. And at the same time, he should resign himself from the veteran committee. If he did that, maybe he'll seek some recourse with these individuals. If he does not, well, then his actions speak louder than words.
Supplemental? No? Jeff Davies, post-meeting.
So I'd like to ask you, draw on your memory a little bit. I'm quite a young man, and I don't know how it went, say, in like the 60s and 70s, like shortly after the Second World War and Korean Wars ended. So I wonder if you could maybe tell us a bit about how it worked back then and how it's declined over the years.
You mean Veterans Affairs?
Mm-hmm. And just the services that veterans get.
We had personal counselors that came to visit.
To your house?
Right to our house. And they would see us and say, well, what do you need? What can we do to help? And, or I could call, say Bonnie, and say, things aren't going very well. I need help. And, but they came to see you. There was that personal touch that means a lot. And slowly that disappeared. And then you had to phone. But out of the clear blue sky about a year ago, I got a phone call from DVA. I'm a counselor. I'm phoning to find out how you are, Helen Rapp. She doesn't know me. I don't know her. And is there anything we can do for you? She's in Charlottetown. And I said, no, we're being well looked after right now. But at our age, you never can tell. My husband, who's a veteran, just had a stroke. And but I'm getting help, and so is he, because we're both under the VIP program, which is very, very fortunate. But the counselors have all disappeared. So if I have a problem now, I call Veterans Affairs office. I have Bonnie's phone number. And bless her heart, she helps. She'll say, well, I'll contact somebody. I will do this. If you don't have someone like that, you're lost.
And I suppose that the Afghan veterans, they don't have that sort of support.
This is what we're fighting for. This is what, it's the personal, it's the one-on-one that means so much.
If I could just augment those comments. When I was the Veterans Ombudsman, I would visit the district offices and I'd visit the front lines of the department, and I'd have so-called case managers coming to me with those very complaints. They have too many cases to handle. They have 900 or 1,000, 1,200 files. Some of them are just ridiculous. And exactly. And some of the old and bold who'd been there for 20 years could describe to me how they have had to drop their standards of treatment because they just don't have the time or the capacity. And there are some people who will go above and beyond and work on their own time so that they can try and add that kind of personal touch. That's why it is such a farce to suggest you can take any money away from the front lines. Like, let's forget about the programs. Let's say the programs are great. But to decrease the capacity of that department to look after the people any more than it already is it's just completely ridiculous.
I'll get Sean to say a few words as well.
Sure. I mean, so it's just some simple math. We know that there's, 2,000 working hours from 9 to 5 in a year. So if they've got 900 to 1,000 clients, they can spend maximum, an hour and a half with each client? Exactly. And so when you add on top of that some high demand case management, such as, multiple injuries from Afghanistan, multiple limb loss, or psychological injuries, that these case managers are far too overwhelmed to give the care they want. And as Peter said, these are excellent employees. These people really care at the frontline level, and they run into no end of frustration with the poor decisions and the bureaucracy that they have to follow in order to get help for their clients. And this comes from the senior managers. Very few of them have any idea what it's like to deal with a disabled veteran. Why? Because none of the senior managers in Veterans Affairs has ever worn a uniform. That's right. Veterans Affairs Canada does not have management that are veterans. So how could they have the slightest idea what policies would work, what bureaucracy and red tape has to be cut, if they have no idea what it is to be a veteran, let alone be a disabled veteran?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, no other questions. I do want to thank each and every one of you, and to the veteran community for being out today, and to our friends in the media, thank you very much for coming. Wish all of you a very good week. Thank you. Merci.